So I learned that I can only do 4 gigs at a time of video file before it stops. It stopped at the end of that last video, and I'll just pick up from there. It's kind of a weird point to stop, but yeah, I'll just roll with it. Uh, yeah, I lived with a lot of victimhood mentality. A lot of the choices I made, I blamed others, and that kind of went on for a while. I got into uh, selling weed and that whole scene because I thought it was, for me, a way to get attention, and I liked weed too. But I never really got into the drinking aspect or the going around really brawling. The guys that I chilled with, yeah, they kind of just took advantage of everyone. And they were good at their core, but they were kids. We were all kids. Some of us made worse choices than others, but it doesn't define us. Yeah, so my mom and I, we fought a lot growing up, and we were really at each other's throats, and she kind of blamed me for a lot of things, and she accused me of stealing and all this and that, and she would tell people that I did all these things I never did, and a lot of it I realize now was her mental illness, so I don't hold anything against her at all. I think you can realize that. But as we got older, my brother, who had moved out when I was 3, my sister moved out then when I was older in high school. Yeah, and then I ended up basically I got into trouble. I got caught smoking weed at school. I was kind of a trouble child. Kept getting in trouble, and so I was on house arrest my senior year. And I got out, and I felt very isolated from everyone that I went to high school with because I didn't get to go to anything after high school when it finished, or the last year of high school. Yeah, kind of rough. And then I just kind of focused on the whole drinking aspect, and I met through the restaurants. I ended up actually being homeless my first time when I was 19. That was kind of interesting. I was staying with my mom. She kicked me out when I was 17 when I graduated, but I came back for a month when I was 19, and then she found weed and kicked me out. You're noticing a pattern. I ended up staying with this guy in a grove of trees next to a cornfield in Pennsylvania. His name was Tony, and he had red hair, and he was kind of crazy. They called him Crazy Tony. And he basically let me stay there, but he told me that, in no uncertain terms, that he had mental disorders, and he would see red and go crazy and get very angry unless he was high all the time. So basically that was his way for us to smoke all my weed. But he showed me how to be homeless in a clean way, and how to kind of live like I am now, but way back when, 20 years ago, literally. 18, I guess. Right after that, my aunt and uncle took me in. They're so sweet. They took me in for 6 months maybe, and they taught me how to start managing my money and to go get a job, and they taught me to be a little more, to take accountability. It was a big step because my uncle really took me in and helped me deal with a lot of my emotional issues. And my aunt was there for me as well, but my uncle and I really connected a lot, my Uncle Pat. It was very special for me to have that. And, as a kid, actually, my aunt came and asked me once to come live with them, and they would take care of me and, put me to college and all that stuff. And we grew up very poor, but I just couldn't leave my mom. So they had a lot of love for me. They always showed a lot of love for me, my aunt and uncle. But they made sure that I knew I had to go get a place. I couldn't just stay there. I got a place, my own first place, and I was a shitty roommate. And I was doing Oxycontin and pharmaceuticals and stuff for 2 years. And I was dating this girl, and I was verbally abusive to her. And it was just not the right me at all. Luckily, everyone I knew went to jail that did those drugs. I ended up living in this house, the stone farmhouse, where I partied and had the biggest, coolest parties. But it was built in 1785, and the new addition was built in 1840. It was in the Cumberland Valley, right by the Connewanet Creek in Pennsylvania. I'd gone by that house a bunch as a kid, on my way to church and stuff, and I always wanted to go live there, and I ended up living there. But yeah, that's where all the people that I was basically there I was the guy in the books. You know, I made enough money where it could seem like my name was on the lease and they could sell drugs out of the house. And yeah, when they all went to jail, I got stuck with the house. It was too much for me to pay. But luckily, I'm the only one who didn't go to jail, and I didn't have to. I always said I didn't quit using drugs. Drugs quit using me. Right around the time, I ended up actually was drinking a ton, and I might have gotten roofied by a guy that was my boss back in the day. I'll never know. We were out drinking, and he invited me to stay at his place, and you know, he's a gay man, and I've never, at least as I got older, never had any reason to assume that a gay man would have any, you know, ill will towards me. But I ended up getting really woozy and going down to my car because I didn't feel comfortable after he invited me to his bed. And I woke up in my car, down in a ditch, all this blood on my face, and no lie, I went like 8 miles down the road and went down the wrong way of a one-way street and crashed through the only gap in the guardrail for like 8 miles. Ended up under a bridge on the Susquehanna River. The airbag punched me into the back seat because I had no seatbelt on, and the skin all scraped off from the abrasion and getting punched, and the chemicals set in my eye bag. The chemicals from the airbag set into my eyeballs for like how long? However long I was unconscious, and it like burned my eyes. I had chemical burns. Long story short, I finally made it to the hospital after trying to wander that way and being blinded by the chemicals. And I remember not remembering my name when an officer took my ID. And yeah, I lived through that. Totaled my car and didn't get a DUI. I made up some story about like having hit my head so hard and going to a bar afterwards because I didn't realize what had happened. And they didn't find my car. It's like a week later, and I'm with my buddy Steve Hickey, and I'm calling everyone to find my phone or my car. Like, dude, where's my car for real in real life? And I noticed that the police station had called. I called them back. He didn't know what's going on. All of a sudden I say, officer, I found my car. And he's like, where? And I'm like, it's on TV. And they were digging my car out of a ditch on TV. There was a gun in the car, and who that guy who went to jail had left because he had stolen it from someone I was bringing it back to, and it had gotten stolen in the car, and I had to go to court against Nate. And man, it was a crazy time of my life. There's another point that I got pulled over walking trashed, like brownout drunk, drinking SoCo 100. And yeah, I blew a .37. You know, I'd walked through like thorn bushes. They were all on my body. I had rocks in all my elbows. I still have scars. Like, we're talking about when I was 21 years old. I had like taken my shoelaces off completely. They said I was hunkering down behind like a sign. I didn't even know what hunkering was. I was laughing. And I blew a .37. And then I blew in the breathalyzer again and blew a .37. And then I said my alphabet backwards and back and forth. I said it perfect. No lie, I said ZYXWVUTSRQPNMLKIHFECDBA. I forgot an L. But that night I didn't. And yeah, they took me home to my girlfriend's house that time. I could go on and on for crazy stories and crazy things I did. I might have to do separate videos on that one. But long story short, I would just party hard. And I'd make good money in the service industry and just kind of blow it for years. And I ended up always telling myself that I would, go to Cocoa Beach where my father had surfed and teach myself to surf. And I'd go to Tennessee and I'd like go and paint where he painted. I'd go to Hawaii and California and here. And I told myself I'd go all these places and I'd tell everyone, and I would do it for like 2-3 months and I just wouldn't go anywhere. And I did that for like 10 years of my life. Eventually I was drinking so much. I was going out every night at the bar, spending $100, and I was like homeless, living in my old house that was all shut down with no electricity and no water. And I would black out drunk, push a trash can up against a wall, and jump up to my old porch and shimmy in and just like piss and shit in this like toilet that had no running water, and use just newspaper to like wipe my butt, and just go across to a gas station to like wash my armpits. And I did that for like a month and a half, working like 14-hour days every day for 30 days, or for 90 days. I literally worked 14-hour days for 90 days straight back at Spice in Harrisburg. Such a funny name, Spice. It was a restaurant that served like almost Latin cuisine, and it was spicy, but the food was good, and the chef was badass. Jeff Utzman, the only guy I'll ever call chef. But yeah, basically I was just drinking so much at that point, and I was living in conditions like a crackhead would just not be. They'd be thinking it was gross, and I just kept being homeless and living in like, I was the guy on a park bench, you know, and eventually I kind of just lost it, and I ended up going back towards where my mom lived, and I talked about this before, but I went back towards Carlisle where I grew up. I started rebuilding my relationship with my mom. I stopped drinking liquor and slowed down on beer. I started backpacking and getting into the Appalachian Trail, and that's when it really changed me. I ended up like, sorry, there's a fly on my cut. Gross. I ended up realizing I could achieve my dreams and I could go do that stuff. So I started to basically rebuild all those bridges I'd burned, and I spent a couple years of my life like working on my relationship with my mom, letting go of all that old anger stuff, letting go of all that stuff, you know, having the relationship with my brother, building a beautiful relationship with his kids, everyone, just letting stuff go. And I didn't want to leave and carry that energy with me. Oh man, the wind. I didn't want to leave and carry that energy with me. So I just tried to fix it all. And I started backpacking. I did like 40 miles in a single day in the winter with 50 pounds on my back. I did like 110-mile stretches. I was killing it. I did all the way up the border of New Jersey and PA, all the way down to the border of Virginia, West Virginia, in a year. Just section hiking. And was exploring everywhere. I mean, years. I'm really just condensing this, but eventually I got to the point where I sold all my stuff. And back in 2012, July 17th, I moved to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, right by the Smoky Mountains, right by where I was born. And I'd been painting, and I started following my dad's path so I could get to know him and get to my peace. So that was the start of my journey 9 years ago. And I'm just going to cut it off for now because I do have things I need to do as I finish my last day in the slabs. I just wanted to share, not leave you hanging on that story about my dad. Yeah, I ended up getting the peace with my mom and then searching for the peace with my father. And I'll tell you, it was a huge success. I'll continue with that story on a following video. Thanks for watching. I know that it's some weird personal stuff, and I'm really not trying to play a sob story. I'm just letting you know where I'm coming from and where I came from and what I've worked through. And, you know, it'll give you more deeper meaning when you know how I choose to live. And I really don't mind sharing my vulnerabilities. I feel like we could all do that, and it might be a better place. So thanks for watching. Have a great day, and get outside. Take care.